Dear learners, welcome to the counseling session of Indira Gandhi National Open University. I am Edwin Moses, joining from IGNOU Study Center 2504, the Shahiba College, Tiruchirappalli. So we will be discussing about selections from Indian writing, BEGC 132. In the last session, we discussed various writers with regard to the varied cultures of India, right? We'll just go for a recap and then continue with the Dalit literature, the Dalit voices in Indian writing, and some women writers. So I will give an overview of Dalit writers and the women writers. So before that, we will just recap some of the writers who are part of the Bhakti movement, right? The Bhakti movement in India. So we discussed about the plurality and cultural diversity, right? In the work Propositions by Sujit Mukherjee, how he stressed on the need to develop a new methodology to write Indian literary history. And we were discussing about the varied history or histories of India, the varied cultures of India, right? You have the Hindi tradition, the Sanskrit literature, Hindi literature, Tamil literature, Marathi literature, okay, and Malayalam literature, Gujarati, Bengali, Telugu literature. You have literatures, cultures, literary traditions, numerous literary traditions. That is why he used this word multiplicity of cultures, multiplicity of languages. Right? So it is difficult to write a history of India, right? It is not like the America or the Britain. It's based on one language, right? French means France, France means French, and America, we have English, Britain. It is all based on one language, one literary tradition. That's the English tradition. But it is not so with regard to India. India is a heterogeneous, okay, literary tradition. But these countries had homogeneous, okay, same literary traditions, okay, single literary tradition, homogeneous, and India is heterogeneous in nature. So that is why he talked about emphasis on modernity and advent of print technology, how it changed the way we read and write, and civilization has completely changed how people started reading and writing and developing various literary traditions. And today we have a new body of writing called Indian writing in English, where there are many writers, right? Women writers, writers from the margins, Dalit writers, right? Writers from various cultures, from various literary traditions. And that is India. That is India. That is the idea of India, right? The application of this Western literary canon, right? The maybe, of course, we have the influence of English in India, that is undeniable, right? We are influenced by Western literary traditions, and we were also discussing about the many versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata that you come across, 300 Ramayanas and Mahabharata, K. Ramanujan. How do you differentiate between high culture and popular culture? And writing and history of Sanskrit literature, and he talked about how we have to need a broad view spectrum of our literary past as the basis of alternative mode of history. Because India is a land of many languages, may differ but need not disturb the entity. Because he gives a beautiful comparison. How there are various types of music, Indian music. There are Hindustani music, Carnatic music, but it is Indian music. Likewise, Though there are various traditions, various literary traditions, multiplicity of cultures and languages, India is one. So that's the beauty of India. So multiplicity of languages, heterogeneous literary tradition, all these things we have discussed. And the concept of mad lover, very important, by Sisir Kumar Das. How this concept of mad lover is recurrent in many works of Indian writers. You have many famous bhaktas, right? Or bhaktais, you would say, like Meera, okay, Andal from Tamil Nadu, Meera from Rajasthan, Meera and Krishna, okay, Andal, and Elinjettachan, okay, from Malayalam, is called as Kallukudiyan, okay, one who is drunk with the divine love. And you have Sufism. Rabia is a famous saint. Latika Banch, okay. So all these saints, and we read some of the poems by Kabir Das. How is mad? The whole world is saying, I am mad of the divine love, right? How is influenced. This theme of Sufi, a theme of mad lover, this concept of mad lover is recurrent in many of the poetic traditions, right? We read a poem from the Bengali poet, the Vishwa Veera Saiva poet, Vashavana, who sings, feet will dance, eyes will sing, tongue will sing, and not find content. What else shall I do? The heart is not content. Listen, my Lord, it's not enough. I have it to me. I have it in me that you cleave thy belly and enter the, O Lord of the meeting universe. He wanted to just enter into the belly of the Lord. Such a kind of intimate, okay, gesture. And writers talking about their union with God, okay. These famous mythical figures who are talking about the union with God, okay. And Meera, Andal, for that matter. And here, Vasana by Akka Mahadevi. And she is a writer from Bengali, a saint. She says, how I love the handsome one. He has no death, decay, nor form, nor place or sight, no end, nor birthmarks. I love him, O Father. Listen, I love the beautiful one, right? With no bond nor fear, no clan or no land. For his beauty. So she is describing the beauty. White as jasmine is my husband. Take these husbands who die, decay, and feed them to your kitchen fires. So these are the things we discussed with regard to the concept of mad lover and the Bhakti movement and the Sufi movement, which was very prominent, okay, in India. And that influence had a great influence on Indian culture. And you see that union of a human and God. That is the concept of mad lover, which is recurrent in many of the works and many of the saints who have sang about gods, right? And that is very important. So coming to Dalit Shahitya, literature of the oppressed. What is Dalit literature? Can anyone say what is Dalit literature? This term Dalit, right, is very much controversial, right? You can historically, you can talk about B.R. Ambedkar, the Harijan movement, the Dalit movement, right? And B.R. Ambedkar is one who fought for the Dalits. And there were many groups of the lower class society, okay, the Harijans, the Bahajars, okay, such groups who fought for their rights. And what is this Dalit movement, Dalit literature? And what they talk about, and what is the literature about? Dalit writings about the lives, okay. What kind of life they are living? Even today we have problems with regard to Dalit people and Dalit literature, the problems they are facing in their everyday life. And historically, you have a lot of incidents, okay, lot of historical incidents that has been against the Dalit people, right? Maybe we'll just see an overview of that. Then what is that? What kind of life they are living in? I just want you to give some of the points. What is the reason for their condition or for their oppressed condition? It's quite common, and you would have come across Dalit and Dalit literature. Anything else you would like to share about? Right. So Eleanor Zelliot, and she is a critic who talks a lot about this word Dalit, okay, and it was once a term of pride, but now it has become degraded, okay, and associated many controversial, okay, meanings, right? And Dalit movement by Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, and the Mahars, Mahans, and Chambars, and how even they have good literatures, right? So how these people are considered to be the lower caste people, and they are discriminated by upper class society, the upper class people. And it is an endless problem that is in India because of their caste, because of their lower status, right? These Dalits were discriminated. And that is why we are talking about Dalit literature today, because, and these literatures, the people, the common people, the literatures of the oppressed, and these people who are suffering under the caste, maybe because of caste and because of the higher caste people. Okay, and these people have lot of stories to tell, right? Lot of stories to tell, but we don't regard this as mainstream literature. That is the problem, right? All this literature produced by the upper caste society, right, are considered to be the literature or the canon, right? And that is what we have to critique, and we have to recognize that there is a Dalit Shahitya. So that is one important aim of this paper, right? Dalit Shahitya, literature of the oppressed. And what these literatures have to say, you have to think about that, right? You have to critique the idea of what is canon and what is non-canonical. Even in Indian writing in English, there are great writers. I don't deny the exemplary nature of those literatures and the quality, the greatness of such literatures. But still, you can see even in Indian writing in English, you have only certain literatures that are represented, right? Writers, canonical writers are represented, right? Like Rabindranath Tagore, great writer, no doubt about it. See, I'm not talking anything against these writers, but it is that all these writers are great writers. Rabindranath Tagore, okay, and you have famous writers, English writers, Indian writing in English, Salman Rushdie or Chetan Bhagat, and, okay, and many women writers, okay, and only a few writers you can see given importance to Indian writing in English, right? And such canonical status they have attained. For example, I would say Shakespeare is the canon in Western literature, right? But Shakespeare has become the standard, and that is so important. You don't see other minor literatures. Likewise, Bengali literature is predominantly Indian literature, right? Writings from Bengal. Maybe you talk about Sri Aurobindo, Rabindranath Tagore, right? You can see only in Indian writing news, these writers are predominantly found. And where is the literatures of the oppressed, right? Writers from different states, writers from different states. Where are these regional voices, right? Those writers who have come from this lower caste community and what they have to say. That is what we have to critique and we have to think about. And these literatures are also worthy of study, right? And that is why Dalit Panthers there developed a group, Dalit Panthers against caste discriminations. Writers maybe who are famous in this group, writers Bansod, Bama, Mina, Gajabia, all these writers are the part of the Dalit Panthers, right? So Dalit literature is marked by revolt and negatives. Okay. Dalit literature is marked by revolt and negatives. There is a sense of revolt against the oppression of the upper caste people. There is negativism, right? Negativism, they talk about their sad state of affairs, how they are suffering because of the caste system and the caste hierarchy, right? How they are treated because of their lower caste status, right? All these things, and they revolt against them. So all these things form a part of Dalit literature. And there is a question: is there Dalit literature? Right? Yes, there is Dalit literature. So Dalit literature has a purpose, not for entertainment, but to expose the age-old exploitation on the basis of caste. The age-old exploitation on the basis of their caste. Can you say some incidents or some examples from history or some common examples that are against the lower class people? Right? You can comment in the chat box how Dalit people are treated. Maybe what are the sufferings they face because of their caste, right? You can. Dalit literature, very good, Ashwini. It means whatever Ambedkar has written about Dalit society. It's not just that, but now we have many voices, many writers who are talking about Dalits and Dalit literature, and especially the people, the Dalits who have experienced suffering and oppression, and they are writing their experiences. The writers from that community, right? The writers from the lower caste, or these writers who really express their suffering and what they have undergone because of the age-old traditions, and throughout history how they are denied their rights, how they were ill-treated, they suffered because of the caste system, right? All these things you can see in Dalit writers. They assert the identity of the marginalized. They assert the identity of the marginalized. These people are marginalized. So what is the content of their writing is not for entertainment, but to expose the age-old exploitation on the basis of caste. So can you name some, or can you just quote some of the incidents or some examples how Dalit people are suffering? Inequality in education, very good. Champion Guru says inequality in education. They are not allowed to read. They are not allowed to enter schools, or they are not allowed to enter into certain spaces. What are those spaces? And they are untouchables, right? Right? Untouchables. And there is a beautiful story called Well, where a woman, a Dalit woman, a lower caste woman, is not allowed to take water from a well in the town. Okay, that well is only used by the people from the higher caste. This lower caste woman is not allowed to go near that well, and she has to travel miles in order to take water from a well in a nearby town. She has to travel a lot, maybe somewhere in the outskirts of the town, right? And what is the water is common to everybody, right? Water is free to everyone. How can you deny rights to take water from a particular well because that well is owned by someone from a higher caste, right? There are such incidents, and how beautifully there are stories that describe the plight of these people, right? Sufferings of these people. And any other examples, incidents? I just want to, yeah, devoid of transportation. You're not allowed to enter the temples, and there are many things you can say, right? So I just want to read a few lines from the story, The Well by Premchand, right? That's an interesting, not an interesting, very sad story in the sense how these people are treated, right? There are two characters, Joku and Gangi. Can you see the screen? Premchand is a famous short story writer, Indian short story writer. And Gangi is his wife, and Joku is sick and he's not able to, okay, have a healthy life, and he's thirsty, right? What kind of water is this, he asks, right? Because she gets only dirty water from the well. My throat is burning, you give me water that's turned bad. And she wants to go and get water from a near well. Well, no one would let her walk up to the Tagor's well. So Tagore is the big shot, okay, a man from the upper caste, okay, in that town. Even while she was far off, people would start yelling at her at the other end of the village. The shopkeeper at well, Mr. Thakur had a well, but nobody allowed her to take water from the well in the town, right? But finally, she somehow managed to go near the well. His sickness would get worse from drinking bad water, so she did not know that by boiling water it could be made safe. And what she does, by 9 at night, the dead, tired, field hands were fast asleep. Ganji reached the Tagor's property, the dim glow of a small oil lamp. She felt angry. Why she was so low and those others so high, right? See the lines. Because they wore a thread around their necks. There was not one of them in the village who was not rotten. They are also, these people of the upper caste, they also stole, they cheated, they lied in court, right? They did all bad things, but still they considered themselves to be holy, high, okay, mighty. How come? She is just talking to herself about maybe thinking about her condition, right? She heard people approaching the well and her heart began to pound. Finally, she started to dip the bucket and take some soldiers. Finally, there is a sound and Mr. Thakur wakes up and she just drops the bucket and she runs for life. And she just stopped to catch it and set it on the wall when suddenly Thakur's door opened and the jaws of a tiger could not have terrified her soul. Maybe even the jaws of the tiger could not have terrified her soul. But when Mr. Thakur's door opened, she was so afraid and she ran. The rope escaped from her head. With a crash, the bucket fell into the water, the rope after it, and for a few seconds there were sounds of splash, yelling, "Who is there?" Right? And finally, see how the story ends. When she reached home, Joku with the lota at his mouth was drinking that filthy, stinking mud. So it shows that the condition of these people never changed. It is still the same, right? She was not able to get good water from the well in the town, right? So that is the bad state of affairs and how these people are controlling certain spaces. Okay, water, the well is common to all. How can you maybe not allow somebody to take water from the well? Right? All these things, maybe because of their lower status, you have to think. Devoid of transportation. Okay. Right. Coming to, is there a Dalit literature? Yes, there is a Dalit. Who can write Dalit literature? So Dalits can write as they have gone through the experiences of suppression and discrimination. And there is a debate on this. Who can write? Even there are writers, upper caste writers, who are writing about Dalit and their experiences. Maybe there is for and against for this, and how far they can truly represent their sentiments, their emotions, right? Their suppression and discrimination? That's a question, right? That is why only a Dalit can write about their experiences of suppression and discrimination, right? That is what is said, and that can be true. Okay, that can be so true and experiential. Okay, at one's experience, he writes about their emotions, their experiences, their suppression and discrimination, what all they've gone through in their life. Right? Only such a person who is affected by these practices, these caste practices, can truly reflect, okay, in the writings. So that is the understanding. So Dalit poetry and aesthetics. So what is aesthetic? Can anyone say? What is aesthetics? They have an aesthetic of something and aesthetics. What does the word aesthetics mean? Can you say? Aesthetics. One who believes in religion, okay? Not exactly. Aesthetic. You see an art, okay? What do you feel? Aesthetics in literature, we talk about aesthetics in art, okay? Study of art, okay? No, I didn't get the right answer. Aesthetics. What do you do when you appreciate something, right? Body of art and literature, beauty of art and literature, that's good, right? Appreciating the beauty of art and literature, right? So when we say aesthetics of a literature, okay, what are the tastes and beauty of that literature? The appreciation, okay, the rules and maybe the kind of assumptions you have, right? The taste, the beauty of that particular literature, right? The nature of that literature, with all these things, the appreciation of the beauty of art and literature. And here, what is the aesthetic of Dalit literature? Aesthetics of Dalit literature. And you can also have a set of principles with regard to this appreciation of beauty. And you have a sense of beauty by looking at an art, literature, or reading a literature, right? So aesthetics can be simply said, you can say it's appreciation of beauty, right? And the principles concerning that. So what's about Dalit literature? What is the aesthetic of Dalit literature? That is what we have to discuss. Dalit literature rejects the traditional and conventional aesthetics. That there is always some beautiful scenery and beautiful descriptions of things, or a romantic setting, okay, or the hero and heroic exploits in a story, the heroic characters in a story. There are some traditional or the pastoral setting. Like all these things are part of the aesthetics of a particular literature. Dalit literature rejects the traditional and conventional aesthetics and the subject matter of the story, right? It should be happy and okay, entertaining, interesting, but not about Dalit literature. What is this beauty of Dalit literature is, okay, expressing their pain and anger, expressing their pain and anger. It deals with anger and pain, the everyday assault on basic rights, the everyday assault on human rights. Okay, Limbel says the three values of life: equality, freedom, and solidarity can be regarded as the essence of beauty in Dalit literature. So, what is the aesthetic of Dalit literature? Is equality, freedom, and solidarity, and that is the essence of the beauty in Dalit literature, right? They describe their experiences, they narrate their experiences, right? Deals with anger and pain and the everyday assault on basic rights. And Limbali says the three values of life, right? Equality, freedom, and solidarity. Keep that in mind. Right, we'll just see a small video clip on the Dalit Panthers before going to the next part. Dalit Panthers, who are these Dalit Panthers, and maybe what is the reason for their rise? Can you see the video? Is the audio and video clear?
Then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's call for
Can you hear it?
deliberations was in sharp
Can you hear it?
contrast to the Kilaya Federal Committee report on Parliament, which revealed the shocking extent of atrocities against Dalits across the country.
You're not able to see.
The Dalit Panthers emerged as a reaction to this violence inflicted by the upper castes at 1972, India's 25th year of independence. Then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's call for celebrations was in sharp contrast to the Kilaya Federal Committee report in Parliament, which revealed the shocking extent of atrocities against Dalits across the country. The Dalit Panthers emerged as a reaction to this violence inflicted by the upper castes and injustice meted out by the state. World over, it was a period of ferment. The Vietnam War, Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power movement in the US, and our own Naxalbari movement. Taking their cue from the Black Panther movement in the US, a group of writers and poets in Mumbai, Namdev Hassan, J.V. Pawar, Raja Dhale, and Arjun Dakre, came together to form the Dalit Panther.
We formed the Dalit Panther on the basis of Black Panther. Black Panther was that time very aggressive movement in America and South Africa. Many of those leaders, they were behind the bars. When we have started the Dalit Panther, Black Panther almost all, it was finished. Some of us, like Raya Dale, Namdev Hassan, we were writers. We were writing that we should fight for our people to fight against the atrocity. But in the year 1970, if you find, there was some atrocity cases. So we decided why only to write only, why we should not come into the street. And accordingly, we have decided to form some organization who can fight for the upliftment or the atrocity against the Dalits. So this Dalit Panther organization was formed on 29 May 1972 in the street itself.
The Republican Party of India, set up by Babasaheb Ambedkar, had split into many factions after his death and had a pro-Congress slant. But the youth were attracted to the Panthers for their militant and aggressive stance towards caste atrocities, which were quite rampant at the time, just like now. Besides lynching and murders, Two Dalit women were paraded naked for drawing water from a well in Maharashtra's Parvani district. On 12th August 1972, Ramdas Narnavre, a Dalit farmer in Nagpur, was brutally murdered by caste Hindus to appease the orders. Condemning the atrocities, marches and rallies were organized in Mumbai by the Panthers. Raja Dhale's article pointing out that disrespecting the national flag attracted more stringent punishment than disrobing a Dalit woman stoked the flames of rebellion in many Dalit youths across Maharashtra. In September 1974, when the Gawai brothers had their eyes gouged out by upper caste Hindus in Akola district, they came to the Panthers for justice. The Panthers managed to get a meeting with Indira Gandhi while she was on an official visit to Mumbai, resulting in fresh charges being filed against the accused under the Indian Penal Code.
That time, anywhere, if the atrocity happened, we used to go by in thousands. And they got the assurance that somebody is there to protect us, somebody is there to hear us, somebody is there to take our rights.
The Panthers made extensive use of literature and poetry to express horrors like untouchability and other caste atrocities, giving rise to a new genre of Ambedkarite literature which was infused with realism. They structured their ideology with elements from Ambedkar, Buddhism, and Marxism. In their manifesto, they expanded the definition of Dalit to include anyone who was oppressed, from workers to the landless to women. A critical event in the Dalit Panther history was the Lok Sabha by-elections for the Worli-Naigaon constituency. It was a three-way contest between the Congress, Bharatiya Janata, and the Communist Party of India. Since the RPI and Shiv Sena were backing the Congress, the Panthers called for a boycott of the elections. A function organized by the Panthers in the BTD Chawl in Worli was disrupted by stone pelting from the Shiv Sena.
तो वहाँ के पत्थरबाजी होने के बाद मीटिंग में सब लोग ऐरा सहरा हो गए उधर पे और पुलिस वाले ने उनके लड़कों ने जो शिवसैनिक थे उन्हें अपने पिताजी का अपने जो भाई के लोगों का ड्रेस पहन के उनके ऊपर अन्याय का लाठीचार्ज किया, इन्हें कायदा उन्होंने हाथ में लिया। तो पत्थरबाजी की परल में जो लक्ष्मी कॉटेज इलेक्शन बिल्डिंग है तो दोनों तरफ अभी तो बहुत डेवलप हो गया है। उस टाइम पे बड़ा रास्ता था, दोनों आजू बाजू में शिवसेना के जो शाखा थे लोग थे उन्होंने दोनों बाजू से ऊपर से गटके में पत्थरबाजी की। हमारे एक माता जी उनको बचाने के लिए मेरे भाई तुरंत गए, उसके ऊपर वो पाता बड़े पत्थर ऐसा गिर गए ऑन द स्पॉट। बड़े भाई गए, उस टाइम मेरे बड़े भाई उनके साथ में था कि जो ये है जो बॉडी है उन्होंने अपने हाथ में लिया, उनको नीचे नहीं डाल दिया। पुलिस वाले देख रहे थे, पुलिस वाले ने सब आए, उस टाइम पे अशुद्ध किया, लाठीचार्ज किया, ये सब हिस्ट्री है।
The boycott was successful as the Congress lost the by-election to the Communist Party, but the Panthers had to pay a heavy price. By now, ideological differences and meddling by other political parties had created a rift in the Dalit Panther Party. To avoid potential misuse of the party name by some members, the founders decided to dissolve the Dalit Panthers in 1977. After it was disbanded, similar outfits sprang across the country, but none would create a stir like the original Dalit Panthers.
Right. Hope you got a historical sense of this movement and the formation of Dalit Panthers, right? And how they formed as a group and their ideology, right? From Ambedkar, Buddhism, and Marxism. And Ambedkar is the reason for that. He converted to Buddhism because of the discrimination, the caste discrimination that was there in Hinduism, and because of how these people are treated. And that's the reason for many people to convert to Buddhism from Hinduism during the Dalit movement in India, right? So literature, we will discuss about literature from the Northeast, okay? Before that, I want to read just one poem from a Dalit writer, okay? Can you see the screen? Is the text visible? Is the course material visible for you? Can I get an answer? Can you see? Right. F.M. Shinde's habit. This is a very prominent Marathi poet. He is a very prominent Marathi poet with 24 collection of poems. And this habit, can anyone read this poem? Once you are used to it, you never afterwards feel anything. Amruta, can you read? Once you are used to it, can you see the text? Anybody can volunteer to read, please? Once you are used to it. F.M. Shinde, a Marathi writer's poem. It's a Dalit poetry. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Loga or anybody? I think I'm not able to hear you. Talk now. Can you read? One of you, can you read this poem? Once you are used to it. Vignesh or Vincent? Anyone? Okay, fine. Once you're used to it, you never afterwards feel anything. Your blood never more congeals nor flows. For red mud had been slapped all over your bones. Once you are used to it, even the sorrow that visits you sometimes in dreams melts away embarrassed. Habit is not used to breaking out in feelings. So what this poem is about, right? You can see the interpretation, right? Once you are used to it, you never afterwards feel anything. So what the poet says, right, is once you are used to that feeling, once you are used to that oppression and subjugation. So Dalits are used to that oppression and subjugation. So they felt pain, but after a period of time, right, there is no feeling, right? They got used to this feeling. They got used to this oppression and subjugation, stopped feeling anger and humiliation after the prolonged suffering. So your blood never more congeals nor flows. So the blood in the body solidifies, it stops flowing. So it signifies how a person is rendered lifeless metaphorically because his blood stops. Because making him unable to feel hurt, anger, or pain, he becomes, because of the prolonged oppression and subjugation, prolonged pain and suffering, you don't feel at all, after a period of time. So comparison with the process of making clay and mud, how he is comparing, right? Once you are used to it, even the sorrow that visits you sometimes in dreams, it just melts away. It's embarrassed. You stop feeling any emotion. You become lifeless like a clay mud. So that is the condition of Dalit people. So the lines reflect on how it's not free to feel or even free or to feel even sorrow. So they are not free even to feel, feel even sorrow. So the Dalits have become so passive because of the prolonged suffering. After years of suffering, they cannot even feel sorrow. Keep that in mind. Habit is not used to breaking out in feeling. Once you are used to something and it becomes habit, it is definitely difficult to break away from it. So one becomes inert and passive without any protest. Because they have protested, they have fought against all their inhuman condition. They have fought against the oppression, their condition, but they are not able to get any solution, right? They are fighting. So that is how, after all the protests, they have still They are fighting, and they become, after a period of time, after the prolonged suffering, there is no change in their life. They became passive. They become inert. They are not able to feel anything, right? So that's it brings out the trauma of these people, how they have suffered and how they have become passive because of their prolonged suffering. That is this aesthetic of this poem, and that is habit. He talks about the suffering, how he brings out the suffering of Dalit people, right? Translated from Marathi. Priya Darka. So that is why, whatever I have said, right? How they suffer without any protest or resistance. You can read this interpretation. The mud and clay statue uses that imagery to delineate the lifeless and dehumanized condition of the Dalits, right? Mud and clay are lifeless, dehumanized. How they are compared to the mud and clay, how they have become like mud and clay. The dehumanized condition of the Dalits. The poet says that one habituated to humiliation and suffering becomes passive without any voice of protest. The blood stops flowing and becomes a mud and clay statue, right? That is the condition of the Dalit people, right? Just to give a taste of Dalit poetry for you. So literature from the Northeast. You have to understand literature from the Northeast is an intermixing of cultures. The indigenous culture at the one side and the influence of English language and English culture. So English has become a medium of creative expression. Even their oral traditions, everything was expressed through English. And literature and politics. That's all. There is a lot of politics associated with literature from the Northeast. How much representation is there from literature from the Northeast? That is why Government of India is giving special emphasis to the literature from the Northeast, or the policies of the government for the Northeast people, right? Everything to develop these people, to develop their condition, right? In order to represent their literature in the mainstream literature, in the mainstream Indian writing in English. Right, and I just want to say a few points with regard to the literature from the Northeast, and you can read those poems. There are beautiful poems in the text. For lack of time, I cannot deal much, read the poems and explain to you. Maybe a few points to discuss with regard to Dalit literature. Right. So intermixing of cultures, English as a medium of creative expression and oral tradition and literature and politics. So the mixing of both indigenous cultures, the native cultures of the many tribes, okay, the Assamese, you have various groups of people from Assam, from Mizoram, right, Manipur, and all these groups of people. Their indigenous culture, along with the influence of the Western culture, English cultures, right? There is a mix of cultures in Northeast, and that is why, and the influence of English, especially the influence of many religions, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, all these things mixing together created a unique culture. And of course, Christianity and British culture, English as a language of medium, had a great impact comparing other religion and languages. English as a medium of creative expression, and these people chose English as a medium of creative expression. The oral traditions are even expressed through English, right? Okay. So coming to women speak, there are many women writers, Indian women writers, right? Kamala Das, Jhumpal Lahiri, and especially writers who are not much represented, like Lakshmi Kannan. Right? She talks about the various women characters, okay, of everyday life, and how Indian women is suffering, right? How Indian women is suffering because of the regressive practices, the regressive cultural practices, right? How they are affected because of the cultural, okay, practices, the regressive practices of our society. But all these things make a part of women's literature and Lakshmi Kannan's works as well. And what these women writers, they talk about, they discuss about, is they are against patriarchy. Can anyone say what is patriarchy? What is patriarchy? I think you are familiar with that. What is patriarchy? So I'll wind up by 5:30. Just 5 minutes. I'll end the class. So with this, we are completing BEGC 132. Devoted to our country. Others, not exactly. Now that is patriotism. That is patriotism. I am talking about patriarchy. 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 So these women writers, they write against patriarchy. It's simple. I'm not talking about patriotism. This is patriarchy is different. What is patriarchy? Any answers? No, not nationalism. So I'm not saying patriotism. Patriarchy is different. Patriotism is different. I'm talking about patriarchy. Male domination, very good. Male domination. So how men have dominated women, okay, in various ways. We have historical incidents, and you have even in our cultural practices and gender roles. With regard to the gender roles we are following, the gender roles are constructed. What do you think? Maybe what are the toys? I would ask you, what are the toys that are bought to the boy baby? What are the toys we usually buy for a girl baby? What are the toys we buy for a boy baby? Can you give some examples in the chat box? What are the toys you get for a boy baby? What are the toys you get for a girl child? Can you give some examples? To know about the various roles constructed in society for a male and a female. Vehicle related to boys. Anybody more? I expect more answers. Good, Amrita, good. Dolls for girls, champion, good. Vehicle, cookery toys for girls, champion, that's good. Yeah, that's a kind of discrimination, right? The roles, the roles played by men and women are constructed, right? From our childhood, the roles played by men and women are constructed from our childhood. From the time you are a boy, from the time you are a girl, the things that are bought for you. Kitchen set for a girl, okay, doll for a girl, and soldiers, or you have a car or a bulldozer for a boy, and you fix the role what you want to play in society even at the childhood. So that is where discrimination, that is where your roles are determined. So you have to think about gender roles, critique gender roles. That gender roles are a construction, constructed by us, constructed by the society. So all these things we have to question. So all these writers, they talk about gender discrimination, male domination, right? How male are dominated in the family, in the domestic space, Okay, how women are always in the kitchen. Okay, they are discriminated because of their gender, and they are not allowed to read or write, and they are in many ways, okay, in their practices, in their cultural practices, they are discriminated in many other ways. You can say a lot of examples like that. And how women are treated in a family, how women are, whether their opinions are heard. Are they able to live an individual, successful life? Are they allowed to read and express their opinions? So that is why you have a famous feminist, Virginia Woolf, who says a room of one's own. A woman should have a room of one's own, right? How she has to she needs a space, personal space, in order to develop as a writer. She needs a room of her own in order to develop as a writer. There are great writers, feminists, who have talked about this, right? And you can see these writers, Indian women writers, who are talking against patriarchy in their works. So I want you to go and read some of these works. So they want women to be treated with respect. And I talked about gender roles, and they're not allowed to express, read, or write. All these things you have to critique and think about with regard to Women Speak chapter, right? And the Indian women writers. Right, with this, I will stop. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. Or with this, I will close. Tomorrow, we will complete BEGC 131. Okay. I think that is enough for one class, is enough for that paper. So I will complete BEGC 131 tomorrow. So you can attend as per the schedule. So if you have any questions, you can. You have to submit it to your study center. You have to submit your assignments in your study center. The study center you are allotted to. You can send it through post, or you can go and hand over. You have to submit it to the study center you are allotted to. Maybe. Any questions, others? Yes, you can post. You just contact your study center and let them know that you are posting. You just to the coordinator and put the study center's address and send it. If you have a contact pen, just inform them. Otherwise, you can get to know the right address, study center address, and send it to the coordinator and the address of your study center. Try to get in touch with their study center. So they are giving you the academic support. So they are the one who will be uploading your marks finally. So be careful and check that your assignment has reached them and get to know that. Okay. Right. So shall I end the meeting? If there is no other question, I'll end the meeting. Thank you. Thank you for listening.